Fire Grayson Knight, billionaire, cold, untouchable. One night, one reckless proposal, marry me. Sienna Carter, a waitress, a woman with a dangerous past. She wasn't supposed to spill coffee on the most powerful man in the city, and she definitely wasn't supposed to become his wife. A contract, a year-long deal, a marriage full of secrets. But when her past resurfaces, will Grayson protect her, or will he be the one to destroy her? Before we dive in, tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to watch till the end. The air inside the little coffee shop smelled of roasted beans and fresh pastries, a sharp contrast to the man in the tailored suit who didn't belong there. Grayson Knight, billionaire, ruthless, untouchable. A man who never wasted time on trivial things. Yet, here he was. He had only stepped in to take a call, his usual driver running late, his patience running thin. But then, she happened. A woman rushed past him, balancing a tray of orders. Before he could react, crash. A steaming cup of coffee spilled across his $10,000 suit. Gasps filled the cafe. Oh my God. Sienna's voice trembled as she realized what she had done. She expected him to explode, to demand she pay for the kind of suit she could never afford. Instead, he smirked. The world knew Grayson as a cold businessman, a man who never let anything shake him. But this woman, this nobody, had just made him pause. And that intrigued him. Sienna's hands trembled as she grabbed napkins, her face burning with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see you there," she stammered, dabbing at his ruined suit. Grayson Knight, a man who built an empire on control, should have walked away. He should have fired off a sharp insult and never looked back. But instead, he watched her. The woman was different. Not the polished, gold-digging socialites who threw themselves at him. Not the cold, calculating people he was used to dealing with. She was real. And for the first time in years, he felt something. Before he could stop himself, the words left his mouth. "Marry me." The cafe fell silent. Sienna froze, napkin in midair. "What?" she whispered, thinking she had misheard. Grayson leaned in, his voice smooth, dangerous. "You need money. I need a wife. It's a business deal. 1 year, no emotions, no strings." Her heart pounded. This was insane. She should say no. She should run. But as her past closed in on her, as she realized she had nowhere left to go, Sienna did the unthinkable. She said yes. Sienna Carter sat frozen in the dimly lit office of Grayson Knight. The contract lay before her, cold, unfeeling, and binding. 1 year, 1 marriage, no emotions, no strings attached. Grayson leaned back in his chair, his piercing blue eyes locked onto her. "Sign it," he said, voice calm, almost bored. Sienna swallowed hard. Everything inside her screamed that this was madness, that marrying a stranger, a billionaire no less, was a mistake. But then she remembered the debt collectors, the danger lurking in the shadows, the past she couldn't outrun. And suddenly, this wasn't madness. This was survival. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the pen. For 1 second, just 1 second, she looked up at Grayson. His expression was unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes. A warning, a dare, a challenge. And then, she signed her name. Grayson's lips curved into a dangerous smirk. "Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Knight." Sienna barely had time to process what she had just done before Grayson stood up, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced ease. "Pack your things," he said smoothly. "We're leaving." Her breath caught. "Leaving?" she echoed. Grayson glanced at her, his gaze sharp and unreadable. You think a billionaire's wife lives in a tiny apartment with a leaking ceiling? Heat rushed to her cheeks. She opened her mouth to argue. But what was the point? She had signed the contract. This was her new life now. Grayson's driver was already waiting outside. Sienna slid into the back seat of the sleek black Rolls-Royce, sinking into the impossibly soft leather. Everything about this felt surreal. An hour ago, she was broke. Now she was married to one of the most powerful men in the country. Grayson sat beside her, scrolling through his phone like this was just another business deal. The silence between them was thick, suffocating. Sienna clenched her fists. "Why me?" she blurted out. Grayson didn't even look up. "Does it matter?" Her stomach twisted. It should matter. But before she could push further, the car slowed down, and her breath caught. The night estate loomed ahead, a mansion so massive it didn't even feel real, with towering iron gates and guards stationed at every entrance. Sienna swallowed hard. What had she just signed up for? The car rolled to a stop in front of the night estate, and Sienna's pulse pounded. It wasn't just a house. It was a fortress, marble columns, a grand staircase leading to double doors, taller than anything she'd ever seen. Security cameras, guards in crisp black suits, and a fleet of luxury cars lined in the driveway. Sienna barely noticed when the driver opened her door. Grayson stepped out first, effortlessly confident, as if he owned the entire world. Maybe he did. She hesitated, gripping the fabric of her dress, before finally stepping out. Grayson glanced at her. "Keep up." The doors swept open, and suddenly, she wasn't outside anymore. She was standing inside a palace. High ceilings stretched endlessly above her. A crystal chandelier cast shimmering light across the Italian marble floors. Grand staircases curled upward on either side of the entry hall. Everything felt too expensive, too untouchable. She didn't belong here, but she was here now. Grayson handed his jacket to a butler and strode toward a towering mahogany door at the end of the hall. "Follow me." Sienna took a shaky breath and did as he said. Inside, a roaring fireplace cast flickering shadows across the walls. Bookshelves lined the room, filled with titles in languages she didn't recognize. Grayson turned to face her, his blue eyes unreadable. "This is your life now," he said, voice low and firm. Sienna swallowed hard. "And what exactly does that mean?" A slow, knowing smirk curled at his lips. "It means, Mrs. Knight," he said, taking a step closer, "that you need to learn how to play your role." Sienna's chest tightened as she stood in front of Grayson Knight, the man she had just married, yet barely knew. "This is your life now," he had said. But what did that even mean? She took a slow, measured breath, trying to mask her unease. And what exactly does this role require? Grayson smirked, his gaze sharp and calculating. "For starters, you'll need to learn how to survive in my world." Sienna frowned. "Your world?" He leaned against his desk, crossing his arms. "You think my life is just mansions and money?" He scoffed. "This is high society, and in this world, weakness is a liability." His words sent a shiver down her spine. Sienna had never cared about money. She had grown up fighting to survive, struggling for the next meal, working 2 jobs just to keep a roof over her head. She had learned how to be strong. But this was a different kind of battlefield. Grayson pushed a black folder across the desk toward her. She hesitated before picking it up. Inside, a contract. "You're serious?" she asked, scanning the pages. 1 year. No divorces, no scandals, he listed. "In public, we are a perfect couple. You will attend events, smile for the cameras, and play the role of Mrs. Grayson Knight, Sienna's stomach twisted. "And in private?" she asked carefully. Grayson tilted his head, a dangerous gleam in his eyes. "We stay out of each other's way." The coldness of his words sent a chill through her. She should have known. A man like him didn't marry for love. This wasn't a marriage. It was a business deal. And if she wanted to survive, she had to learn how to play his game. Sienna barely had time to process the contract before she was thrown into Grayson's world. The very next evening, she found herself in a designer gown, stepping into an event that felt like a different universe. Chandeliers glowed overhead. Waiters in crisp uniforms served champagne on silver trays. Billionaires, politicians, and elite socialites mingled around her. She had never been in a place like this before. And yet, she had never felt more out of place. Grayson appeared at her side, his presence commanding. He placed a hand on the small of her back, a silent reminder that she belonged to him now. "Smile," he murmured in her ear. She did, for the cameras, for the curious eyes watching them, for the reporters who whispered, "Who is she? Where did she come from? Why did he marry her?" Grayson tightened his grip on her waist. "They'll eat you alive if you let them," he warned, voice smooth but deadly serious. Sienna swallowed hard. She knew this wasn't just a party. This was a test. And if she failed, she wouldn't just embarrass herself. She would embarrass him. The night was a blur of flashing cameras, champagne toasts, and whispers that followed Sienna like shadows. She played her part, smiling, nodding, standing beside Grayson like a perfect billionaire's wife. But then, she felt it. A pair of eyes watching her from across the room. Her heart stilled. She turned, just slightly, searching for the source. And then she saw him. A man in a dark suit, standing near the exit, his eyes locked onto hers. A face from her past. A face she never wanted to see again. Her stomach dropped. Number not here. Not now. She forced herself to look away, her fingers gripping the delicate stem of her champagne glass. Grayson noticed. You're tense," he murmured, his sharp blue eyes flicking toward her. She shook her head. "I'm fine." But she wasn't. Because that man, he knew her real name. And if he told Grayson the truth, this marriage of lies would come crashing down before it even began. Sienna's heart pounded as she tried to focus on Grayson's voice, the glitzy gala around them, the camera flashes capturing their every move. But all she could feel was him, the man from her past, still watching, still waiting. She forced herself to turn away, gripping Grayson's arm tighter than necessary. He noticed. "You're shaking." His voice was low, controlled. "I'm fine," she lied. But when she risked another glance, the man was gone, her stomach twisted. That was worse, because if he wasn't standing there anymore, then he was already making his next move. And when she returned to her suite later that night, she found the proof waiting for her. A small, elegant note left on her bedside table. One sentence. "Does he know who you really are?" Her blood ran cold. Grayson couldn't see this. He couldn't know. Because if he did, she would lose everything. Sienna shoved the note into the depths of her suitcase, her heart hammering in her chest. Her hands trembled. This wasn't just a coincidence. Whoever left that note knew she needed to think fast. But before she could take another breath, a knock sounded at the door. She froze. Then, "Open up, Sienna." Grayson. Her stomach flipped. She inhaled sharply, pushing the panic deep down before opening the door. Grayson stood there, his sharp blue eyes scanning her. "You left the party early," he observed. Sienna forced a small smile. I was tired. Grayson tilted his head. You're lying. Her pulse spiked. She turned away, walking to the vanity to hide her shaking hands. Not everything is a game, Grayson. Silence. Then the sound of the door clicking shut. And then his voice. Low. Dangerous. Then why do I get the feeling you're hiding something from me? Sienna swallowed hard, her hands curling into fists. Grayson's presence filled the room, towering, unshakable, and far too perceptive. She couldn't let him know, couldn't let him see the fear clawing at her chest. So she forced herself to turn around, meeting his gaze with false confidence. I'm not hiding anything, she said smoothly. Grayson took a slow step forward, his blue eyes narrowed. Lying to me, Sienna? His voice was low, taunting. That's not a very wise choice. Her breath hitched. He was testing her, hunting for the truth. And if she wasn't careful, he'd find it. Sienna lifted her chin. Believe whatever you want. A slow smirk tugged at his lips. Oh, I will. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. The door clicked shut. Sienna let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. But as she reached for the hidden note in her suitcase, her stomach dropped. It was gone. Sienna's heartbeat pounded in her ears. The note was gone. Someone had been in her room. Someone new. Her fingers trembled as she clenched her fists, trying to steady her breathing. She couldn't panic. Not now. Grayson had left, but had he taken it? Or was there someone else watching her? A cold chill ran down her spine. She needed to find out before it was too late. Sienna grabbed her phone and quickly typed a message. We have a problem. But before she could hit send, a hand covered her mouth. She froze. A voice whispered against her ear. You're in over your head, sweetheart. Walk away before he finds out who you really are. Sienna's entire body stiffened. The grip on her mouth wasn't tight, but it was a warning, a sharp, deliberate threat. She inhaled shakily, forcing herself to think. Stay calm. Stay in control. The man behind her chuckled softly. You thought you could just slip into his world unnoticed. His voice was low, taunting. That no one would recognize you? Her heart pounded. Who was he? How much did he know? She jerked her head to the side, biting down, hard. The man hissed in pain, his grip loosening just enough for her to rip away. Sienna spun around, eyes flashing with fury. But the moment she saw his face, her blood ran cold. She knew him. She knew exactly who he was, and if he was here, then she was already running out of time. Sienna's breath caught in her throat. The man standing before her wasn't just anyone. He was a shadow from her past, one she had buried long ago. His smirk was lazy, amused, but his eyes, cold, calculating. Surprised to see me? He murmured, stepping closer. She forced herself to stand tall. You shouldn't be here, he chuckled. Neither should you. Her pulse pounded. How did he find me? How long has he been watching? You should walk away, she warned, voice steady despite the storm inside her. He tilted his head, studying her. Then, I would, but I have a message. Sienna's stomach clenched. A message from who? The man smirked. You already know. And just like that, every illusion of safety shattered. Sienna's fingers curled into fists, but she kept her face blank. She couldn't show fear. Not now. The man leaned against the doorway, as if he had all the time in the world. You didn't really think you could run forever, did you? Her stomach twisted. She had spent years hiding, changing her name, erasing every trace of the girl she once was. Yet, they found her. "I have nothing to do with them anymore," she said coldly. He let out a low laugh. "That's cute. You think it's your choice?" Sienna's heart pounded. She needed to get out of here, fast. But before she could move, his voice dropped lower. "They know where you are. And let's just say, they're not happy." A chill ran down her spine. This wasn't just a warning. It was a threat. Then he slipped a folded piece of paper into her hand. A name, a time, a place. "Be there, Sienna," he whispered, "or they'll come to you." Sienna stood frozen, staring at the piece of paper in her trembling hands. She knew this would happen one day. She knew her past would catch up to her, but not like this, not now. Her mind raced. If they knew where she was, it meant she wasn't just in danger. Jackson was too. She couldn't let that happen. She needed to think fast. The sound of footsteps broke her thoughts. Jackson. His deep voice was calm, unreadable, but she could hear the edge beneath it. Who was that? She swallowed hard and turned, forcing her expression into something neutral. No one. Jackson's blue eyes darkened. Try again. Her throat tightened. If she told him the truth, he'd never let this go. He'd tear apart everything to protect her. And that was the last thing she wanted. So she did what she had always done best. She lied. It was just an old friend. Jackson didn't move. He didn't blink. He just stared at her. And then, his voice dropped lower, colder. "You're lying to me." Sienna felt her pulse hammering as Jackson's gaze burned into her. He knew. She could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his fingers curled into fists at his sides. "You're lying to me," he repeated, his voice dangerously calm. She forced a smile, trying to steady herself. "Jackson, it's not—" "Don't," he cut her off. "Don't lie to me again." Her throat tightened. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to let him in, but the moment she did, he would never let her go. And that was something she couldn't afford. Jackson took a slow step closer, his blue eyes locked onto hers. "You think I don't know when someone's running, Sienna?" His voice was softer now, but somehow it hurt even more. "You think I don't see it?" She flinched, because the truth was, he did. She had spent years running, hiding, and now she had run straight into the arms of the one man who could ruin everything. Jackson exhaled sharply, raking a hand through his hair. "Tell me the truth, or this is over." Her chest ached. She had a choice. Tell him everything, or walk away. She took a shaky breath, and then she turned, walked to the door, gripped the handle so tight her knuckles turned white, and without looking back, she whispered the words that shattered them both. "I'm sorry, Jackson." And then she left. Jackson Kingston had built his empire on control. Cold, calculated, untouchable. But right now, he had never felt this out of control before. The penthouse felt suffocating without her. The scent of her perfume still lingered in the air. Her clothes were still hanging in the closet. But she was gone. She had walked out, without an explanation, without looking back. And the worst part? He had let her. Jackson exhaled sharply, pacing across his office. This wasn't over. It couldn't be. Ethan, his closest friend and business partner, leaned against the desk, watching him carefully. "You let her leave," Ethan said. Jackson clenched his jaw. "She lied to me." Ethan smirked. "And yet, you're still thinking about her." Jackson didn't respond, because the truth was, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Something was wrong. Sienna hadn't just walked away. She had run. And Jackson Kingston never let something slip through his fingers. Not his business, not his money, and definitely not the woman who was now haunting his every thought. Jackson hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, hadn't done anything except sit in his office, replaying every conversation, every glance, every moment that had led to this. And then, Ethan walked in, with a file, a thick, heavy file that he dropped onto Jackson's desk with a quiet thud. Jackson's eyes flickered to it, his gut twisting. What is this? Ethan didn't smile, didn't smirk, didn't crack a joke, and that told Jackson everything. Read it, Ethan said. Jackson hesitated, and then he flipped it open, his entire world tilted. Sienna Carter wasn't who he thought she was. On fire, the fake name, the hidden past. The lies woven so perfectly that even he hadn't seen through them. She had been running, not from him, but from something else, something bigger, something dangerous. Jackson's grip tightened on the papers, his pulse hammered in his ears. She hadn't betrayed him. She had been protecting him, and instead of listening, he had let her go. Jackson didn't waste a second. Deals could wait. Meetings could be canceled. But Sienna? She was running out of time. If what Ethan had just uncovered was true, she wasn't just hiding. She was being hunted. His hands curled into fists as he pulled out his phone, dialing a number he hadn't used in years. The line rang once, twice, and then... Kingston. A low, sharp voice. Didn't think I'd hear from you again. Jackson didn't waste time. I need you to find someone. Silence. Then a dark chuckle. Must be important. Jackson's jaw clenched. She's everything. The words left his lips before he could stop them, before he could overthink them. Because right now, he didn't care about control. He didn't care about power. He only cared about getting Sienna back. Before it was too late, Sienna had spent years running from her past, from the people who wanted her gone, from the truth she had tried so hard to bury. But now, she wasn't fast enough. Her fingers tightened around the worn-out bag in her lap as she stared out the dusty motel window. She had been careful. No social media, no credit cards, no paper trail. And yet, they still found her. The phone on the nightstand buzzed. Unknown number, her pulse spiked. She already knew who it was. With trembling fingers, she answered. And when the voice on the other end spoke, her blood ran cold. You thought you could disappear forever? Sienna's stomach twisted. She should have hung up. She should have ignored it. But instead, she whispered the one name she never wanted to say again. Dante. A slow, dark chuckle. Miss me, sweetheart? She gritted her teeth. Number. This wasn't just a warning. This was a death sentence. And if she didn't leave right now, she wouldn't make it out alive. But what Sienna didn't know? Jackson Kingston was already on his way. And this time, he wasn't playing by the rules. Sienna didn't waste a second. She grabbed her bag, threw on a hoodie, and bolted for the door. She had to disappear. Again. But this time, something was different. Because as soon as she stepped outside the motel, she felt it. A presence, a shadow. Someone was watching her. And then, gunfire. Sienna barely had time to react before a bullet whizzed past her ear. She dove behind a parked car, her heartbeat slamming against her ribs. Another shot. The window beside her shattered. She wasn't going to die like this. She had survived too much to be taken out in a cheap motel parking lot. Then, tires screeched. A black car sped into the lot, headlights blinding. A door swung open. Get in. She knew that voice. She turned, breathless. And standing there, looking like he was ready to burn the world down, was Jackson Kingston. For a second, she hesitated. Another bullet ripped through the air, this time inches from her foot. Jackson's jaw clenched. Now, Sienna. And for once, she listened. She threw herself into the car, and the moment the door slammed shut, Jackson hit the gas. The engine roared. The car skidded onto the highway. And just like that, Sienna wasn't running alone anymore. But the real question was, would they even make it out alive? The car sped down the highway, city lights blurring into streaks of gold and red. Sienna's breath came fast, uneven. Jackson's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his jaw locked, his blue eyes burning with fury. She knew that look. It wasn't just anger. It was something worse. Betrayal. Minutes passed in tense silence. The adrenaline was still pounding in her veins, but Sienna couldn't take it anymore. She turned to him, voice barely above a whisper. "You shouldn't have come." Jackson's jaw tightened. "You think I'd let you die in a motel parking lot?" Sienna swallowed hard. "That was never your problem." He let out a sharp, cold laugh. "Then tell me, Sienna, whose problem is it?" She clenched her fists. She wanted to lie. She wanted to push him away. But the truth, it was too heavy to carry alone. "I was protecting you." The words spilled out before she could stop them. Jackson's grip on the wheel tightened. His voice was dangerously calm. "From what?" She exhaled shakily. "From me." Jackson slammed on the brakes. The car skidded to a stop, tires screeching against the pavement. He turned to her, his blue eyes blazing with something raw. "Start talking, Sienna." And this time, she couldn't run. She couldn't lie. Because Jackson Kingston had just risked his life for her. And he deserved the truth. All of it. Sienna squeezed her eyes shut, forcing the words out before she lost her nerve. She had spent years burying the truth. But now she had no choice. Because Jackson Kingston had just risked everything for her, and he deserved to know. "I wasn't always Sienna Carter." Jackson didn't react, didn't flinch, just watched her, waiting, listening. She inhaled sharply. "My real name is Sienna Romano." Jackson's jaw tightened. Romano. He knew that name. It was a name tied to power, corruption, and bloodshed. The Romano family was once one of the wealthiest in the country, until their empire collapsed overnight, until they were wiped off the map, until everyone thought they were dead. But now, one of them was sitting right in front of him, and she was his wife. Jackson's fingers curled into fists. "Tell me everything." Sienna's chest tightened, because now there was no turning back. She took a shaky breath. And finally, she told him the truth. The truth about her family. The truth about Lorenzo, the man hunting her. The truth about why she ran, and when she was done, Jackson didn't say a word, didn't move, didn't breathe. Because for the first time in his life, Jackson Kingston had just been outplayed, and he didn't know what the hell to do next. Jackson sat in absolute silence. Sienna had just turned his entire world upside down. His wife, his damn wife, wasn't just some mysterious woman with a troubled past. She was Sienna Romano, the last surviving heir of a fallen empire. And worse, she had been hunted for years, alone, without him, without his protection. And now the man who wanted her dead was still out there. And Jackson Kingston was done playing games. He stood abruptly, his presence dangerous and unshakable. Sienna flinched. Jackson. But he was already pulling out his phone. She watched as he dialed a number, his voice low, lethal. Find Lorenzo Romano. Sienna's stomach twisted. What are you doing? Jackson's blue eyes burned into hers. His words were cold as steel. I'm ending this. Sienna's breath hitched. Number. You don't know what you're dealing with? Jackson let out a dark laugh. I don't. He stepped closer, eyes locked onto hers. You think I built my empire by playing it safe? She clenched her fists. This isn't business, Jackson. It's... He cut her off. It is now. Because Lorenzo Romano had just made one fatal mistake. He came after Jackson Kingston's wife, and that meant he had just declared war. Sienna had always known Jackson was dangerous. But this was a whole new level of ruthless. She watched as he gave calm, precise orders over the phone, tracking Lorenzo, digging up information, setting up a plan that would end this once and for all. And the scariest part? Jackson Kingston wasn't scared at all. He was ready to burn the world down for her. When he finally hung up, the room fell into silence. Sienna swallowed hard. This isn't your fight, Jackson. His blue eyes snapped to hers. You think I'm going to sit back and let some bastard hunt my wife? Sienna's heart twisted. This isn't business. Jackson took a slow step closer. It is now. She exhaled sharply. You don't have to do this. His jaw tightened. Yes, I do. Because for the first time in his life, Jackson Kingston had something to lose. And he wasn't about to lose her. Sienna's heart pounded as she stared at Jackson. She had seen him ruthless. She had seen him cold. But she had never seen him like this. Like a man ready to go to war. For her. We leave in an hour, Jackson said, checking his watch. Sienna's stomach twisted. Where are we going? His blue eyes darkened. To finish this. She swallowed hard. You don't even know where Lorenzo is. Jackson smirked. I do now. Sienna's breath caught. He wasn't just talking. He had already found him, already set up the final move. And now, there was no stopping him. An hour later, they arrived at an abandoned estate on the outskirts of the city. The air was thick with tension. Sienna could feel it, the weight of everything coming to an end. And then, as they stepped inside, a voice echoed through the dimly lit room. Well, look who finally stopped running. Sienna's blood ran cold. Lorenzo Romano stepped into the light. Jackson's jaw tightened. And in that moment, the war officially began. The tension in the abandoned estate was suffocating. Jackson stood tall, his sharp blue eyes locked onto Lorenzo. Sienna could feel the anger radiating off him, controlled, calculated, and ready to strike. But Lorenzo just smirked. Like this was a game. Like he wasn't standing face to face with a man who would end him. Well, Kingston, Lorenzo said, adjusting his cufflinks. I have to say, I expected better from you. Jackson's jaw tightened. You made a mistake coming after her. Lorenzo chuckled. Did I? Because from where I'm standing, I'd say I played my cards right. Sienna's blood ran cold, because she saw it. The way Lorenzo's hand moved slightly, signaling to something, or someone. And before she could react, a gun cocked behind them. Sienna's heart slammed against her ribs. They weren't alone. She turned, and her stomach dropped. Two armed men stood behind them, guns raised. Jackson, however, he didn't even flinch. Instead, he smirked. And that's when Sienna realized Jackson Kingston had come prepared. Lorenzo sighed. Come on, Kingston. You're smart. You knew this would happen. Jackson tilted his head, calm, unreadable. Oh, I knew. A slow, deadly pause. That's why I brought backup. Before Lorenzo could react, a shot rang through the air. One of Lorenzo's men dropped. Sienna gasped as Ethan Carter stepped out of the shadows, gun still raised. And just like that, the fight had officially begun. The gunshot echoed through the abandoned estate. Sienna's pulse raced, her breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. Jackson stood completely still, his expression calm, unreadable. But his eyes, they burned with cold fury. Lorenzo took a slow step back, realizing what had just happened. His men were outnumbered. Jackson hadn't just come with Ethan. More of his security team emerged from the shadows, weapons drawn. This wasn't a fair fight. Jackson Kingston had never played fair. And now, Lorenzo Romano was losing. Jackson took a step forward, his voice lethal. "You wanted to take her from me." Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Jackson let out a dark chuckle. "Big mistake." Sienna swallowed hard. Because she knew Jackson wasn't just threatening Lorenzo. He was about to end him. Lorenzo's hands curled into fists. "You think this is over?" he spat. Jackson raised a brow. "I don't think," he said smoothly. "I know." And then he gave the final order. "Take him!" Sienna gasped as Jackson's men grabbed Lorenzo, disarming him in seconds. Lorenzo struggled, but it was useless. Jackson never lost. And now he had won the most important fight of his life. Sienna stood frozen, watching as Jackson's men dragged Lorenzo away. It was over. The man who had hunted her for years. Gone. And yet her heart wouldn't stop racing. Not because of fear, but because of Jackson. Because of what he had done for her. Because of what he had risked. And now she didn't know how to face him. The estate was silent once Lorenzo was gone. Ethan gave Jackson a nod before walking away, leaving them alone. Sienna swallowed hard. "You didn't have to do this." Jackson's blue eyes burned into hers. "Yes, I did." Her chest tightened. "Why?" A pause, a heavy, aching pause. And then Jackson exhaled sharply, running a hand through his dark hair. "Because I love you, damn it." Sienna's breath caught. She had spent years running from love. Years believing she wasn't meant to have it. But now, here was Jackson Kingston. A man who had built his empire on control. A man who had never let anyone get too close. And he had just risked everything for her. Because he loved her. Sienna took a slow step closer. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Say it again." Jackson smirked, shaking his head. "You heard me the first time." She laughed softly, tears burning her eyes. And then she kissed him. Not because of the contract, not because of the deal, but because she loved him too. And this time, she wasn't running. The world outside was still spinning, but in this moment, nothing else mattered. Jackson's arms tightened around Sienna, as if she might disappear if he let go. "Tell me this is real." His voice was rough, desperate. Sienna looked up at him, her heart hammering in her chest. "It is." She had never been more sure of anything. For the first time in years, she wasn't running. For the first time in years, she had found someone who saw her, beyond the lies, beyond the past. And he still chose her. Jackson cupped her face, his blue eyes burning into hers. "Then stay." A pause. "Stay with me, Sienna." Tears stung her eyes. She had spent so long believing she wasn't meant for this, that love wasn't something she could have, that people who cared for her always got hurt. But Jackson, he wasn't afraid. He wasn't running. He wasn't giving up. And neither was she. She took a shaky breath. "I'm not going anywhere." Jackson exhaled sharply, as if he had been holding his breath this entire time. And then he kissed her like she was the only thing that mattered. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a golden glow across the penthouse. Sienna stirred, feeling the warmth of Jackson's presence beside her. For the first time in years, she woke up without fear, without the weight of the past crushing her. Jackson was still asleep, his hand loosely resting over hers, as if even in sleep he couldn't let her go. She smiled softly, tracing the edge of his jawline with her eyes. How did this happen? How did she, a woman running from her past, end up in the arms of a billionaire who had everything? And yet, he wanted her. Not the illusion, not the lies, just her. Sienna took a deep breath, letting the feeling sink in. But just as she reached for her phone, a text flashed across the screen, unknown number. "You can't hide forever, Sienna. We're coming." Her heart stopped. Blast number. This wasn't happening. She had buried them. She had left that life behind. But the past, it was coming for her. And this time, it wouldn't stop until it destroyed everything. Sienna's fingers tightened around her phone as she read the message again. "You can't hide forever, Sienna. We're coming." A chill ran down her spine. She thought she had outrun them, thought she had escaped. But the past, it never lets go. Jackson stirred beside her, his arm tightening around her waist. She froze, afraid to wake him, afraid of what he would see in her eyes, because if Jackson Kingston knew the truth, would he still want her? She took a shaky breath and slipped out of bed. The cold marble floor sent a shiver up her spine as she tiptoed toward the balcony. Her hands shook as she typed a reply. "Sienna, what do you want?" 3 dots appeared immediately. They were waiting for her. "Unknown number. You know what we want. You stole something that doesn't belong to you. We want it back." Sienna's blood ran cold. They weren't after her. They were after Jackson. She gripped the railing, her heart hammering in her chest. If she stayed, Jackson would be in danger. If she left, she would never see him again. She had no choice. She had to disappear. Because if Jackson found out the truth, he would never forgive her. Sienna had spent years perfecting the art of running. She had disappeared before, changed her name, erased her existence. She could do it again. She had to. Jackson Kingston wasn't just a billionaire. He was a man who could burn the world down to protect what was his. And if he knew the truth, he would never let her go. Her hands trembled as she stuffed a few essentials into a duffel bag. Passport, cash, burner phone. She knew the drill. She had one shot, one chance to get out before Jackson woke up. She tiptoed toward the bedroom door, her heart pounding in her ears. But the moment she reached for the handle, a deep voice cut through the silence. "Going somewhere, sweetheart?" She froze. The room was dark, but she felt it. The sharp, piercing gaze of Jackson Kingston locking onto her. She was caught. Sienna turned slowly, clutching the duffel bag against her chest like a shield. Jackson stepped out of the shadows, his expression unreadable. His blue eyes burned with something dangerous. Betrayal, anger, possession. "You were leaving." His voice was low, controlled, deadly. Sienna swallowed hard. "I can explain." Jackson let out a sharp laugh, but there was no amusement in it. "You don't need to, I already know." Her breath hitched. He knew. And just like that, her world collapsed. Sienna's pulse pounded in her ears. Jackson took a slow, deliberate step forward. His sharp blue eyes locked onto hers, searching, waiting, daring her to lie. "How long were you going to run, Sienna?" His voice was low, controlled, dangerous. She clutched the duffel bag tighter. She had prepared for this moment, had rehearsed the lies. But standing here, under the weight of his gaze, she couldn't speak, because for the first time she didn't want to run, Jackson exhaled sharply, his patience slipping. "You think I didn't know?" he murmured, shaking his head. "You think I wouldn't find you?" Sienna's stomach twisted. "You don't understand." "No, sweetheart." Jackson cut her off, stepping closer. "I understand everything now." Her breath caught. "You were protecting me," he said quietly. "Weren't you?" Sienna's throat tightened. Jackson had figured it out. Her past. The danger. The real reason she had agreed to this marriage. She had done everything to keep him safe. But Jackson Kingston was never a man to be protected. He was a man who took what was his. His hand brushed her cheek, his touch soft but commanding. "You don't get to make this decision alone, Sienna." His voice was raw, filled with something undeniable. "I'm not letting you go." Tears burned her eyes. She had spent her whole life running from people like Jackson Kingston. But now she didn't know if she could run from him. Not when he had just given her a reason to stay.